Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and as always, joined today by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Zak and Greg. How you doing, mate?
I got ill at like a conference that I went to for work last week, and it's annoyed me because if you remember rightly, I was ill like 2 weeks ago. So I'm just annoyed, which is great to talk about Saints because we're all annoyed at Saints. So
Yeah,
ties in quite nicely.
yeah, that's fair.
Unnecessarily annoyed about something, and that's kind of how I feel about football at the moment. So,
Well, look, we're trying here not to be too annoyed. We're trying to feel positive and look to the future. And
if you say it enough, someone will believe it.
I made some thoughts and points. I don't know where we are in the week, mate. I don't know if it was the last episode, a couple of episodes ago, about what we need to do, right, and the statements we need to make and the quality we need to invest. But there's another really important part of next season, which we saw a bit of on Saturday, and I suspect we're going to see a bit more of through the season. That sort of is the one thing that Sports Republic said when they first came in, that they really appear to be sticking to their guns about. And I kind of respect it. I'm kind of there for it, right? And that's bringing the youth through, right? So we talked a bit about Robinson and his debut and bringing him on the pitch and the importance of that and getting the minutes. And yeah, I just wanted to sort of ruminate on that a bit, really, and think about how important that might play for us next season, and what sort of balance the team might look like, or what we think may be the right balance. Like, how many youth players do we see coming through? I know neither you or I, particularly the under-23s, but there's 3 or 4 names that are in amongst it, right?
Premier League 2, remember now, we don't call them by the youth team or anything like that for some weird reason. Yeah, it was Monday we talked about it because it was off the back of me being absolutely miserable and you trying to convince me that not all is lost. I'm very much of, we say they've stuck to their guns about it, and I guess they have in the sense that Dibbling came through under Martin technically, and Rusk gave Robinson his debut the other day. Juric was hired on the basis that he was going to bring in play the youth a little bit more, and I don't think he did that once. So that was quite funny. And I don't know if you've seen words from Carl Walker-Peters that have come out today, which is they, as in Southampton, not us, which is very telling as to where his head's at already, need to make sure that they spend some time thinking about who we get in as the next manager. And I think that you're right. It needs to be, in my opinion, a key focus. And it really depends if we're going to be this sort of if we're going to be this sort of like, we're going to sort of wait for a long time and try and pick and choose our transfers, or are we going to develop young players and put them through with the right leadership skills, under the right leadership skills to play in the league later on? And I think that was quote unquote part of the Southampton way previously, which is funny because it wasn't really part of the Southampton way either. Like, other than Smallbone and maybe Obafemi and like I could think of Ndulu, a couple of people that had a few small appearances that then went on to transfer to smaller clubs during that whole the Southampton way period of time, where part of that is our academy. There weren't really a huge amount of players that came through, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that if what we need to do is get back to the Premier League, and what we need to do is focus on recruiting in the right positions to get us back into the Premier League, I do not know if their focus is going to be the youth system at this point, because I don't know if that's going to be the strength that we need to get up. And I don't know if we have the right environment to foster that.
I think I disagree. I think that the getting back to the Premier League and pushing that is why it's so important, because I talked about the importance of making those maybe 1 or 2 big quality signings. And what that means is that for the rest of the depth, because we have to imagine we're going to be having a big clear out in the summer, right? Because if we don't, it's a categoric failure. There are so many players that don't want to be here. There are so many players that are not good enough to be here, and you know, we need to trim properly. But that means if we're trimming and we're we've only got the money to put down for 1 or 2 big signings, which is what we want to see. That means that the depth has to come up from below. And so that's why I think it becomes so important to build on what we've got, which is why I think it's important that there are, I think, 3 or 4 names I've heard Alfie House particularly raving about coming up and coming through, and especially in the Championship where, in theory, it should be easier to get their minutes in. I think it becomes really important.
When we talk about youth and bringing these sort of players up, right, are we talking about from the Southampton Academy from point A to point B? So as we've discussed before, there's a couple who have come through that we've lost. Amimeu, Magoma, who we actually bought off of other clubs during the youth contract still. But I can't help but think about relegation season. One of the big things that everyone was excited for was Romeo Lavia, Gavin Bazunu, Shea Charles. These were all youth players, and we gambled on the youth at that point, and it didn't pay off. And I don't know if that was because of poor management, the fact that we gambled on players we thought were good enough that weren't good enough. We even realistically tried to do it by we tried to get the full sweep of that, like that lot of City players as well, right? Because you could arguably put Taylor Harwood-Bellis into that category. He was just on loan already at Burnley the season that we bought all of these players. So yeah, when you say we make our big 2 statement signings. Are we just going to focus on what we have in our academy? Or do you think recruitment in itself is going to be less about picking for the first team and picking for those behind the scenes? Because that's kind of what we've seen them do already. They were like, they've done this quite a few times with a few transfers for both us and Gastepi and our French team as well. As in, like, Kaya Sander came from our French team, right? So, like, how do you see this playing out? Is it going to be we're going to get youth prospects transfer them directly into the team, or do you think it will be a much larger focus on the academy? Because
I think it has to be a little bit of both.
Or yeah, both.
Yeah, realistically, like I say, if we're going for the big money spendings, we had like 8 or 9 medium spends and 1 big spend in the summer, right? And if we're talking about we want 1 or 2 proper quality big spends, that probably pushes the rest down to, depending on what goes out, 5 or 6 smaller spends instead of that middle size. So I think it's going to be important to look within to what we've got already and bring some of them up for that depth in the squad. But they're not going to immediately jump ship and abandon their approach of sign young, promising players and try and make that come good. Like that's not just going to be completely thrown out of the window. That's still something we're going to have to deal with, and that's fine. I don't hate that. I like that. It just needs to almost take a back seat to that quality this time round.
Yeah, and I think that's the difficulty we've had in the last couple of seasons as well, because we've needing to keep doing this because of the fact that we've had like a crisis season, and then it was we need to get back up to the top of the Premier League, and then maybe we didn't expect to do it straight away, and then we suddenly realised we were. During that time, we also lost who was in charge of the footballing side of the business. We've had a recruiter who, quite frankly, has been so hit and miss that you don't really know. It feels like they roll dice and watch maybe like half of the clips of a player and hope to sign them off of that. We've made lots of gambles with different players as well. So it's wondering when we're actually going to have a proper policy in place. And I find it very contradictory from them constantly to be like, yeah, we're really trying to promote the youth and trying to promote our sort of second under team. But what actually happens is that they buy a bunch of players and then they almost call them youth transfers at like 21, which I mean, arguably you can say that, but like one of the things about Dibbling that's come through that's really good is like he's 18 years old, was 17 when he like made his debut, right? But then also we've lost a couple of those key players that they told us we were going to bring into the first team. Like now, if we'd had Sammy, and considering how well he's doing at Strasbourg, we kept Magoma as a centre back option, right? A lot of the players that we've kind of lost who were in that system, we're now relying on sort of like their backups in the 23 team to come into the first team into these areas. I just find it fascinating. I think. I guess I hope they have more of a plan, and you seem to think they do. But my worry is from what they've shown through running the football club so far, is that they might say that they have a plan, and then they do a lot of not plans. But like, I'm hoping that this focus on spores and like a Red Bull model and this, that, and the other, and an understanding of the heritage of our team of being a let's actually pull people through is, you're right. Maybe we will make a bunch of really, really good, shrewd under Premier League 2 team transfers that will then pay off in dividends. But there's also the big elephant in the room that neither me and you have really mentioned, that I am worried will come into play whether we like it or not. And that is the whole multi-club model thing, right? Where some of the players were probably just going to be sent elsewhere. And we've brought a couple of players in that we thought were going to be youth prospects that have gone on to Giuseppe, or they've finally come to Southampton. I can't remember, one of the young Japanese internationals, he's like 18 or something. He came to join the squad. He was caught in Southampton a couple of weeks ago. So like, that kind of side of things is growing. I don't know really where I'm going with my points, which is not really shocking to anybody, but it's I don't know how I feel about it all. I love the idea of it. I'm very, very scared of the execution of it. But you're right. I think they do need to start.
I've got some points towards that execution that I think might cheer you up, but we'll come to that after a message from our partners at Bioniq.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Okay, and we are back. So something that's sort of flown under the radar, but I've seen talked about a bit, and it's another one of these like back office staff sign-ins, Zach, that sort of come in and fly under the radar and don't get mentioned because no one cares about the people that actually do the stuff. It is the deputy head of recruitment from Norwich that we've brought in.
Oh, yes, I did see that briefly.
Yeah, so she's got a really complicated job title that I can't care to remember improper. But effectively what it means is that she is going to be in charge of youth recruitment. So that in itself is a point that puts forward an opinion that is just what they're going to continue with doing and bring in this promising talent. And that will probably look like all of the things you said. That will probably be some that we sign and slot straight into not the B team, the Premier League
Premier League 2 team.
Yeah, whatever you call it. Why don't they just call things the proper names?
Why would they do that?
Trophy.
I called it the Papa John's Trophy the other day. Turns out it's not even sponsored by Papa John's the other day. We're never going to win that war, mate. So we should probably not try. But yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, some will get signed to the youth team. Some might get brought in and to that position and train with the first team and sort of get in. And some will probably end up going off on loan to some of our sort of sister clubs. But it shows that, again, a single point of lineage, a direct point of responsibility for that role is not something that we have seen previously.
It's not just random.
Yeah,
is what it felt like previously.
Under so it will be pointed, it will be targeted. Now, I don't claim to know a lot about this signing, and I certainly haven't done the research into what she's done, but some of the players that she was responsible for signing at Norwich have gone on to do some pretty good things. So there is hope that that's a step in the positive direction. It's a case of aligning all of those thoughts, and it's another action that's a tick box for me into feeling like there is a plan.
Yeah, rather than it just
feel
being
like
disjointed.
they've like outwardly projected to us that there is a plan, but it feels like at least internally one is starting to come together, and that in itself is almost enough to give me proper optimism.
Yeah, I guess that's the case. Like, I'm not going to lie, I completely forgot about that signing, other than the fact that I briefly saw it in a passing article, as you pointed out. And it does, because I think you're right, the lack of sort of a proper trajectory around what they are doing with both the academy and where it's going, and they sort of take a lot of pride in it, but also it was we've had such a weird scattergun approach to recruitment recently, and I say recently, I mean over the last sort of 2-3 years, but also just so much has happened over the last 2-3 years, right? We had the whole let's buy the entirety of Man City's academy, and then we had the quick we need to stay in the Premier League transfers plus James Bree. That's disrespectful to James Bree. We bought him for like £500,000. We weren't expecting him to be like a break the bank, save our season signing. However, it probably turned out to be one of our shrewd ones. Besides the point. And then obviously we go down, and then a lot of those players end up playing bigger parts in the Championship we'd expect. Sami Edozie, Bazunu specifically. And then obviously we start to pick and choose some other people on loan, like Taylor Harwood-Bellis. And then we've kind of come up, and the entirety of the focus has been around Tyler Dibbling, and everyone asking what Sam Amu has to do to get a game. And then he leaves, and then he starts doing really, really well at Strasbourg, scoring goals and stuff for us. So yeah, it's just that like that has been so scattergun. It's felt so strange because it's like, yeah, we have such a focus on this. I feel like you can't concentrate on one thing for more than 2 seconds because there's so many different things happening so rapidly. And like, I think what we've already established is there wasn't much of a plan. But you're right, having somebody in charge of the footballing operations, including recruitment, and then hiring someone who's in charge specifically of youth recruitment implies, at least on paper, that they are planning to specifically recruit for the youth now. And I hope they take a model like we did with, homegrown academy players, like, don't get me wrong, like Smallbone and Dibbling and stuff, like, wonderful. But like when you've got opportunities in players like Magoma and Sam Amu, who you bring from elsewhere, and we somehow make our academy more lucrative, right? Because that's the other thing, is that we are having players poached from us very, very early on because we're not what we used to be. So it'd be nice to see us get back to that, and maybe we end up with a season where we have some like Walcotts, Lalanas, and Oxlade-Chamberlains all come through at the same time, because that was Gareth Bale, all them lot were quite over a rapid period of time. It wasn't, and they've ended up going on to be massive players in the Premier League and further. So in Gareth Bale's case, so yeah, I would love to see it. I'd like to see something to look forward to that isn't going to be us panicking about what the position of the club's going to be in. And I can't remember who we're talking to. I think it was Oscar that specifically said that our loss of Premier League status and just the state of the last couple of years and has resulted in it hurting our academy. But then it got better again after I was talking about the relegation like 10 years ago. So that hurt our academy. But then now we've kind of...
it was me. I think it came out of my tour of Staplewood.
You're right. So it's one of those things where, like, that means that we're now in a position where theoretically we should start to see some of those players come through. And you are seeing, good players in the under-21s, and you are seeing sort of good recruitment. It's just, yeah, I think that for me, the monkey on my back is consistently this worry of, well, they've had literally no plans so far. So I really hope that this is actually intent and not just we've hired a youth recruiter, and it's like, what for? Yep. That's what we've been told that we should get.
It feels pointed. It feels like this, Johan Spors has come in with the framework he wants. He's starting to put it in place. Is it going to be an instant and immediate success?
No.
Probably not, but it's got to be better than it's been. And that is something, right? Some semblance of structure and planning is all we really ask for.
Yeah, and I think with the youth team specifically as well, like, it would be nice to see us pick some players in the youth who are doing really, really well, put them on the stage of the Championship and watch them shine, and then go, hey guys, turns out we didn't need to pay 30 million for random players no one knows about, or alternatively players that people do know about that have ended up playing terribly for us, and we can actually concentrate on like the resources we have in-house. So you're right. Maybe you're getting me back on side slowly but surely.
I have got some more good news and some more positivity to push through. But first, a message from our partners at Zencastr. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. So, I want to go back to your point about like picking some players from the youth team, or more, being a bit more a bit more outgoing, right, about the youth team and the sort of successes they are having, because they are having success.
Yeah.
And now my final point is that our youth team has a home playoff coming up.
It does.
In the playoff for the Premier League 2, which again, I can't even remember the name of the competition, let alone understand how it works. But if we win, we get another home fixture, I think. But we're playing Brentford B at St Mary's Stadium on the 1st of May. So it can only be a good thing, right?
Yeah, this is what it must be. That's one of the reasons I think I didn't really explain my point when you were like, oh, I think Jay Robertson will be happy to just come in and play in the Premier League. And you're right, probably is. But it's like, I always don't want to taint any of the players with this season because of the fact that if you are feeling success and everything's buzzing and positive, and then you join the senior team, like, yeah, I'm really excited to play. And then you look around and you've got like 50% of the people whose heads aren't even here, 25% that are in absolute distraught because they've got the team club relegated and feel responsible, and 25% that haven't paid attention all season and aren't going to start paying attention now. And it's got to be like a weird environment to be in. But obviously, I think
I get
changes
that,
when you get out on the field, right?
I think that there's an important differentiation here, and I think that the main difference is getting rid of Juric, because honestly, it's not Juric's fault, to be clear, but it's like a line in the sand, right? Because
it's a little bit his fault. He could have tried.
Yeah, okay. Effectively, what we have done by drawing that line in the sand and giving it to Rusk and the Lana, who are popular enough for Rusk to have made his way as in a first team coach, and the Lana's been there and doing that, and we know, putting his arm around the youth and dragging them up to the quality and protecting them. It's like a line in the sand, and as horrible as it is, it's like a pre-season, right? Because
it is, and I can't remember who was saying that we need to start. I can't remember which former player. Someone was saying that we need to start treating this like a pre-season now. We just need to treat these last few games as like, well, what can we do with the players we've got who are probably potentially going to be here or not, right?
And to some degree we have been, and that's what bringing Robinson on for that experience is doing. Bringing him on at home for his debut to get a reception like he got. The crowd were very happy to see that happening, and that's exactly, Ross Stewart. Do you really think if we're chasing Villa down for a win, we bring on an 18-year-old and a striker who hasn't played football in the best part of 3 years?
When the alternative is nothing, I guess.
Yeah. As disappointing as it is, that is the reality. Is that's what we're doing. We're treating it like a pre-season. Let's try and get match sharpness and match fitness into Ross Stewart, who might be a reasonable option next season. Let's get some of these players who are the youth players who are in and around the first team out on the pitch and get them used to, because it is a step up, not just in the opposition, but you've got to think that when you're playing in the Premier League 2 at Staplewood, or even at their games at St Mary's, you get at best like a half-full stadium. You come out onto the pitch with a full 32,000 people at St Mary's. That's a completely different kettle of fish. Just getting that notch on your belt is important, irrelevant of the rest of the team and their mentality and the 3-0 scoreline, because that's not what causes the adrenaline. 32,000 people cheering because you're coming on. That's a surge of adrenaline that you need to get used to handling to learn how to play. It's
true.
And it is a bit sad that that's what our previews are going to have to be like the rest of the season, right? It's like, oh, we're going to play West Ham. Are we going to play our best 11? No. Are we going to win? Probably not.
Mate, are
we going to see some good play, some positive things that set?
We've got to try and do a preview tomorrow. don't gas out all our content now. But no, I get you.
By then, I'm sure the circle of optimism. Look, maybe our youth team is enough to compete in the Premier League.
You're right. We still don't even know, in my opinion, what our best 11 is, and I don't think we're going to know that. I don't even know if we could pick a best 11 for the season realistically, because some players work well with others and some don't. But no, I guess you're right. I think for me, it's just accepting that that's what it is now. I think it's because I really want to at least see us beat that points record before we go anywhere forward. But at the same time, if we don't beat it, it means we are rightfully been the worst Premier League team in history in this season. And I think that, maybe that gives a goal for us potentially if and when we come up next time, right? Is to make sure we don't ever end up that bad again. So
And that's the thing, right? Because it's been so, like you said, your point is exactly right. We had panic state, we had horrible situations to be in with our first relegation season, a series of panic buys, not really dealing with that very well, bringing in a head of director of football, losing that director of football, losing our way, and we're still sort of dealing with the consequences of that through the squad. We had an awful recruitment this season, and so we need to get back to that foundation, and there's going to be a balance to strike, right? There's the beautiful end goal where in 3 or 4 seasons' time, we're in a position where we're financially comfortable when signing 1 or 2 really good players, probably selling some players for profit, bringing in a few youth players, and that's the reality of Southampton.
So what you're describing is Aston Villa, except with the youth players. Because we both watched that PSG game last night, and fair play to Villa, they put in a fight, and then it really, for me, it confounded the fact that there is the gulf between our team and theirs, and the fact they had such talents to bring on and off the pitch, and it still didn't quite make the difference for them. But when you're watching them play, and the fact that they managed to sell one of their best sort of strikers to a Saudi Arabian team, and then you kind of look where a lot of our players are probably going to end up in the summer, and it's not going to be roses for them. I don't think it's not going to be. They're not going to. Maybe Kyle Walker-Peters gets lucky and ends up going to Liverpool or something, right? That's what some of the rumours are.
Yeah, he'll get a
Chances are,
half-decent move. He'll be either West Ham or Liverpool,
but
somewhere like that.
then a lot of the others that I think they're going to move on to amazing things again need to understand that they might have the moniker of being part of the worst Premier League team of all time. So you're right. Like I can. It's hard to visualize now, and that's my problem as well. Is I can get very, as you're aware, I can get emotive after games and emotive reaction, and sometimes I can sit and do research episodes about spores and logically see 4 years into the future, and then like the part of my brain that does that turns off for me to get really annoyed and think the entire thing is doom and gloom because we lost 5-0 again.
Yeah.
So
We've got to find a balance. We know that
difficult.
it's going to take time to get to that sort of promised Greenland, but we still need to do enough that it's not going to be that beautiful dream next season, but we need to do enough that it's not this.
Well, at least we're still a club, I guess. There you go. Here's a point of optimism from me. As much as we rag on about things, I mean, we're not huge critics of Sports Republic. Well, we'll criticise them where it's due, but at the same time, like we don't have Reading's owner, right? We don't have, or even in this case, Sheffield Wednesday, like just actively hostile owners that seem to kind of hate owning you. That isn't where they're at, right?
Well,
and
I think the Sports Republic have made a flaming hot mess of.
I just think they've been dumb.
So
they've just been dumb.
But
they've been dumb when it comes to the business they've invested in.
And they have acknowledged mistakes, and so what else can you do from that point? But also, it's worth mentioning, we turned a profit this year. Like,
yeah, this is also true.
It's not the business side of it that they're struggling with, and that is obvious for anyone to see. It's clearly the football that comes with that. But all we can do is hope that the structure they're bringing in improves that. And is it going to get to the Greenland straight away? No. But is it going to be better? Let's hope.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
That's what we can hope for. But yeah, it will be. Things are going to get better. That's kind of where I'm at this point. They might get worse in the sense of we might get battered the rest of the games this season. But honestly, at this point,
is that any different than the season?
Do the games this season matter much anymore? Really depends on your perspective.
It's pre-season. Change West Ham into Eastleigh, and that's the expectations that we need to have going into these games. So it's just
if they beat us like 4-0, I'll be pretty upset. But there we are.
But look,
if they're Eastleigh,
you've got a tread. Right. Well, that is just about all we've got time for today. As Zach alluded to, we'll be back tomorrow with a preview heading into our pre-season friendly at the weekend against West Ham. Thank you very much for joining us. Give us a shout on all the socials. Are you feeling optimistic for next season yet, or is the pain just still too real? let us know. We're on Facebook, X, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky.
Hey, there you go.
I think I've got them
all of the social medias that potentially exist, apart from maybe like Threads and LinkedIn, because it's hard enough posting it everywhere as it is. I'm not going to try and teach Greg how to use LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, see you soon.
Hey.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.